Hi everybody, I'm Rebecca Keppel. I am super excited to be here. Today I have a video to share with you that is a product swap between Waffle Flower and Tsukineko, and I want to share a card that I made using their StazON pigment ink and brand new embossing powders. So first I'm going to stamp the Poppy Hawthorn stamp set on vellum, and I am using the StazON pigment ink in Pink Cosmos. The cool thing about StazON pigment is that it is a pigment ink, but it's also a solvent ink. So it's opaque, it sits on top of the vellum, and it doesn't smear as long as you give it time to dry. And I like to use the Misty or a stamp positioner with this because when I use a stamping block, it does slide a little bit on the vellum. So, and also I was able to get a really good impression by stamping it twice. This is a large stamp set, so I missed some of those flower centers. There's lots of details there, but if you stamp it twice and use a Misty or a stamp positioner, you can get a really great impression. And look at how pretty that pink looks on the vellum. I am using a heat tool just to heat set this because I wanted to get to work right away. As long as you let it dry, it does dry relatively quickly, but I wanted to start doing some coloring. I'm going to use some pencils to color on this, and the cool thing about coloring on vellum is that there's lots of tooth or that sort of texture to the vellum that picks up the pencils really, really well. If you are not comfortable coloring with pencils, I recommend trying it on vellum because you don't have to do a lot to make it look really cool. So I am using the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils, but for the white pencil I'm actually using a Prismacolor pencil. That's because I buy these white Prismacolor pencils in packs of 12 because I go through them so quickly. And the thing about Prismacolor is I do feel like the white is a little bit creamier than the Polychromos. So I really love my Polychromos pencils. I love coloring with them, but that white Prismacolor, especially in a large pack where you can buy 12 and they're not as expensive as the Polychromos, I definitely recommend using the Prismacolor. So basically what I do for these flowers is I put white all around the edges of the flower because that's the lightest part. The darkest part's going to be the center. And so I go from the center and follow the lines that the artist has drawn in the stamp, and that makes that really pretty depth or dimension where it looks like there's tons of shading and whatnot going on. I really don't do a lot of that. I just kind of follow the lines of the stamp there. So, and then I go back in with that white and kind of smooth everything out. It's very easy to do, promise. Just try it. Now I'm going to use Tsukineko's Versamark embossing ink, and I left this stamp in the Misty in the same exact position so that I could put some anti-static powder over the image that I've pencil colored, and then I'm going to ink it up with that embossing ink and stamp it again right over where we stamped the first time with the StazON pigment. I'm not going to stamp this one twice because we're going to use clear embossing powder, so I'm not as worried about every little detail, but I do want to really press down on all those flower centers and make sure that we're getting a lot of those lines covered by the embossing ink. And I think that looks pretty good. You can already tell that some of those lines have darkened because of that embossing ink. Now I'm going to use the Mboss, which is their new Tsukineko's new embossing powder, and I'm using it in clear matte, which is a really fun look. So you get that raised edge. It's clear, but it's not glossy shiny like the other types of embossing powders are. And I really like this for this look, especially with the vellum. It's kind of nice because it goes along with the matte of the vellum as well. So once I get all the excess off, I am just going to heat set this. And when you're heat setting with vellum, you do want to use a sort of heavyweight vellum. This is Simon Says Stamp vellum, and I feel that it works really, really well with stamping and heat embossing and pencil coloring. And you just want to be careful not to hold that heat tool too close to the paper for too long. So I'll get it kind of hot and I'll get some of the images heat set, and then I'll move it away and come back. Okay, now I'm going to use the Waffle Flower Nesting Circles die and some Thermoweb purple tape. I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of paper over a top folding A2 note card. That's going to cut both of the circles in the same exact spot, and I'm basically going to create a vellum window here. Now that purple tape, sometimes when you run it through your die cut machine, it really sticks to your paper, so just be careful when you're pulling it off. You can see this one, I struggled a little bit, and I just take my time so that I don't tear the paper. The other thing you can do is really take off some of that tack by putting it on your pants or on your shirt or something before you run it through. Now I'm going to use some tape runner and just put it all around that die cut circle, and I'm going to lay a piece of vellum. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 right over that. I'm going to put some tape runner on the back of this white note card that has the same circle cut out of it. I'm going to lay it right on top, and that's going to create my little circle vellum window. And I'm going to put my die cut stamped pencil colored image over that. To hide the adhesive, I'm just going to put tiny bits of tape runner behind the darkest parts of the flower and the leaves, anywhere that I colored with that dark pencil coloring. And I'm just going to press that down, and I love the way that this looks already. This is so easy to do, and it's so much fun to be able to stamp on vellum in different colors. Okay, now I am going to take a stamp from the Poppy Hawthorne stamp set. It says hello in script, and I'm going to use the same StazON pigment ink so that everything is nice and matchy. And I picked it up with my acrylic block there, and now I'm going to stamp it in the bottom right corner. And this stamps on cardstock beautifully as well. So you can stamp on vellum, you can stamp on transparency, but you can also stamp on cardstock. I'm going to use a fine tip white gel pen. This is my favorite white gel pen to use, and I will link all the products down below so that you can take a look if you're interested. And I just like to use the white gel pen just to add some dots and a few tiny little lines to the centers of the flowers. It just adds another bit of interest to those flower centers. I'm not doing anything fancy. There are in the image some little dots on the stamen of the flowers, so I kind of go around those and cover those with some white gel pen, and then in the centers there are some lines, and I'll cover up those with the white gel pen. And I think it's just a nice little extra touch. You don't have to do this. I think that the stamp looks beautiful as is. I just like to do it too. These are the Clean and Clear Waffle Flower enamel dots. They are my absolute favorite, especially the clear ones. I love how the clear looks on the vellum as well. I did another card, same exact techniques, but using the Mariner Blue StazON pigment ink and an oval window instead of a circular window. So I hope you'll give these techniques a try. I hope you'll try out the StazON pigment and the embossing powder and some of these waffle flower stamps and dies. Like I said, everything will be linked down below if you're interested in checking it out. I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. Have a wonderful day.